Hi everybody. I thru hiked Kungsleden in 2018, starting from Abisko at the end of August and arriving at Hemavan 14 and a half days later. This is quite a fast pace because most people, as far as I know, finish it in 4 weeks and maybe some in 3 weeks. That means I did bigger distances each day compared to what most other people do to complete the hike. And being as lightweight as possible, of course without jeopardizing my safety, was my priority when I was selecting this particular gear setup. A more relaxed pace may or may not require a different gear setup, I don't know. Just keep this in mind.
Before starting to show you each item I carried during this hike, let me say a couple of words about the links I put in the description below. The first one is a lighterpack.com link in which you can see the weight of each item in my gear list. The second link is to a YouTube playlist where you can watch my each day on the trail. Finally, and you will possibly be surprised to hear this was my second thru hike of Kungsleden. I also did it in 2017. So the final link is to a series of blog pieces I wrote about that hike, which include logistical pieces like how to get there, the gear selection, etc., and also story of each day of the hike. And one more thing before we start seeing the gear. Now the hike is long over and this is a post-hike gear video. The question is this: could I have reduced my gear weight even more? And the answer is no, not without investing in new and expensive gear. All that being said, at the end of this video I will do a hypothetical or a fantasy section where I will tell you what I would buy to reduce my gear weight even more, if money was not an issue. So don't forget to watch it, it's not gonna be a long section. Now get yourself a cup of coffee or tea and let's get started. Okay, let's start with the clothing. Here is my down jacket, Montpellier X-Lite down anorak. It is ultralight, very warm for its weight, but minimalistic. Some of its features like pockets without zippers or the hoodie without a cinch cord may not be liked by everyone, but overall I like this jacket a lot. However, you have to make sure the downfill doesn't get wet because then it loses its loft and therefore the insulation. Plus, in order to get the loft back, down gear need to be washed in a specific way, which is very hard to do when you're on the trail. So all of this limits the use of down jackets. I would love to use a jacket with synthetic fill in wet trails like Kungsleden if the performance is at least close to this jacket, since it would be much more practical to use in those environments. Enlightened Equipment's new Torrid Apex seems like a good candidate, but I have no idea about its performance. Here is my rain jacket, Montpellier Versalite. This is the older model. The new one seems to be quite different. This is a non-Gore-Tex rain jacket. I'm very happy with its waterproofness. It is super light and breathes well enough. It also acted as an acceptable wind shell / heat retainer, but the durability can be a problem since its fabric is very thin. But I didn't have any problems with it so far. I just try to be careful when I'm using it. And these are my rain pants, Outdoor Research helium rain pants. They're super light, super comfortable, does not restrict my range of motion, very waterproof. Again, the durability may be a problem. You see these tears or holes here. It happened during my first Kungsleden Thru Hike in 2017 when I was brushing past some bushes. I repaired them with tenacious tape that evening and I was good to go the next day. So all this is expected because this is an ultralight gear and that is achieved mainly through using thinner fabrics. So I mean, it's a trade-off I happily accepted. In short, I'm quite satisfied with these rain pants and they worked really well on Kungsleden. This is my Columbia Silver Ridge long sleeve shirt. I did all my Kungsleden hiking in this. I also carried the synthetic t-shirt you see here, but it was only for backup and to use as the cover for my air pillow. I preferred using a long sleeve shirt instead of a t-shirt because Kungsleden can be quite chilly and windy at times, and you know, if I used a t-shirt I would have to stop and put an extra clothing whenever I got a chill, whenever my arms were a bit cold, etc. Which is fine, but stopping frequently is not something I would want since I was targeting to do big distances each day. And of course, sometimes just a long sleeve shirt was not enough and I hiked, you know, wearing extra layers on top of it. By the way, I'm a very warm hiker and I rarely get cold when I'm moving. You may not be so, just keep that in mind. By the way, this breathes really well, and washing and drying it is very easy and it is very durable. I love this thing. I hiked in these Columbia Silver Ridge convertible hiking pants. They are very breathable, comfortable and durable, but I don't like the waist design with a fabric belt you see here. The button and the belt buckle of the pants come right under my backpack's hip belt buckle, and they rub on my skin. To prevent that, you know, I pull the pants up so they stay above the backpack's buckle. You know, at least that was the solution I used, but I wish it used a waist design with an elasticized band, you know, like a running short does, or just like the design my outdoor research helium rain pants use. Otherwise, this is great. By the way, I generally prefer using hiking pants during my long distance hikes instead of running shorts. Why? They protect my legs against cold, scratches, bugs, you know, mud and dirt. Of course, the breathability and the weight reduction provided by running shorts would be fantastic, but these pants are good enough in those aspects. The gear you see now are my base layers, top and bottom. They are Patagonia's mid-weight synthetic base layers. Absolutely love these. First of all, they start to stink later than my other synthetic stuff, and when they do, they stink less. They are very warm. They dry surprisingly fast. I use these mainly as my pajamas, but the top also acted as a mid layer under my rain jacket when it was rainy and cold, because, you know, I didn't want to use my down jacket in those conditions. My Darn Tough hiking socks, comfortable and more importantly extremely durable. I have no intention of buying anything other than Darn Toughs. Here is the underwear I used during the hike. These are Under Armour boxer jocks. They are the 6-inch versions. They are synthetic. Works really well for me. I like them so much that I purchased 4 more pairs. My trail runners, La Sportiva Ultra Raptors, I love them. Traction is good, dries fast, tough. The sizing is a bit weird, so definitely try before buying. Now, I want to give you a few tips if you're in the market for trail runners. And of course, these tips don't cover everything you would consider for such a purchase. First of all, if you want to use your own insoles, like the custom-made ones you see here, you know, when you're trying them, take out the original insoles that come with the shoes and try the shoes with your own insoles, because your size preference may change because of that. And secondly, if you intend to do long distance hikes with those shoes, trail runners, keep in mind that your feet possibly will get larger. Of course, to a certain point, you may want to buy bigger size shoes to account for that. And finally, if I'm buying trail runners for hiking, I would prefer the models with these protective side bands. They increase the durability in those sections, and you know, Some trails like rocky and muddy Kungsleden can be real tough on trail runners. And here are my custom-made insoles. You know, before getting myself a pair, I always had heel pain or pain in other places, but none since I started using these. The original insoles that come with the shoes are very thin and they don't work well for me. So I first tried a mass-produced insole, but you know, these custom-made insoles were the ultimate solution, and I regret that I waited so long to get these. I've been using these for 1600 kilometers in various conditions like the wet Kungsleden, and they're still good to go. And here are my lovely Dirty Girl Gaiters. Absolute necessity in my opinion if you're using trail runners on hikes. Otherwise you may have to stop frequently to get the debris out of your shoes. These are made out of non-waterproof stretchy fabric and they breathe really well. The only problem with these is that the part of the Velcro that you stick to the shoes, and I'm showing them to you now, they may be undone and fall. To prevent that, I glued them to the shoes with a seam sealer. My buff, my sunglass and the protective case, my ball cap or hat, my fleece beanie or hat. This is my head net. It's from Sea2 Summit. It's called Insect Shield. Most of my 2018 Kungsleden Thru Hike took place at the beginning of September, and it was chilly most of the time, at least during the nights. So I did not encounter any mosquitoes or any other flies during the hike and did not use the head net, and not even once. However, during my 2017 Kungsleden Thru Hike, it was real bad sometimes, and this was a lifesaver. I recommend that you definitely take one with you because it doesn't weigh anything and you need it bad when you need it. This is permethrin treated, so it works better in my opinion. Let's talk about gloves. The only mistake I did in my gear list. I generally use a combo consisting of these Z-Packs possum down gloves and these disposable nitrile ones for waterproofing if necessary. Last year in 2017, during my first Kungsleden hike, I used the possum down only once or twice and could have easily done without them, so I did not take them to Kungsleden this year in 2018. What a stupid idea. First of all, most of the hike was in September, so I should have guessed that it would be cooler. Also, it is perfectly possible that I would need them even if I've hiked in August. You never know. And the possum downs you see here are very, very light, so why not carry them, right? I should have known that it's not always about weight reduction. Long story short, I used these nitrile gloves, which were insufficient at times, and when it was too cold, you know, I used my extra socks, which were very uncomfortable and awkward. These are my flip-flops. I am not very happy with them. If I can find a pair of conventional slippers as lightweight as these flip-flops, I will use them instead of these moving forward. That is because I find the flip-flop design very impractical and annoying when I'm on the trail. It is hard to put on when you're wearing socks. It is hard to put on, for example, when you wake up in the middle of the night to go pee. And also imagine you have blisters close to where this strap goes in, like I did on Kungsleden, and it hurts quite a bit. The gear you see inside this Sea2 Summit 13-liter dry bag is my Enlightened Equipment Revelation quilt. It is rated to 10 Fahrenheit and it has 850 downfill in it. Now let me take it out of the dry bag so you see what I'm talking about. My Enlightened Equipment Revelation fully opened up. Quilts are very trendy nowadays, and I love mine. It's very lightweight, adaptable to different conditions, very good value for the money. When I was buying this, the conventional sleeping bags that provided similar features like in terms of weight, warmth, etc. Were more expensive than this. I can't go into the detail here because this is not a gear review that specifically focuses on this quilt, and if I did that, this already long video would be unbearable, but let me say this at least. Quilts are tricky to use compared to conventional sleeping bags. The main issue is to handle the draft problem, which means the cold air getting in mainly from the openings at the back and also from the shoulder head opening, especially if you move around during your sleep and or if you're a side sleeper. I managed this issue during this hike, but needed to wake up in the middle of the night to fix it. And for the first time since I started using this quilt, I got cold shoulders for a couple of nights. It was possibly due to the downfill shifting away from that section, and I handled that problem by shaking the quilt and making the downfill go back there. But there may be other issues that contributed to that problem, you know, like the hot air inside the quilt escaping via the cinched shoulder / neck section, or the shoulders pressing down the fill around them and thus decreasing the insulation. I've already talked about it a lot, so let me finish by saying this. The issues I mentioned are not deal breakers for me, but keep those in mind if you are considering to buy a quilt. It just may not be for you. I myself would prefer a conventional sleeping bag during this hike, but I can't buy new gear for every hike I do. You need to do a lot of research before investing in a quilt, like reading reviews, etc. Size selection is very important in how a quilt performs. Temperature reading is another important concern, and the design selection, etc., etc. Finally, if you're planning to use your quilt during a long distance hike, I would suggest that you try it beforehand, like during overnight hikes, where the conditions are similar to the conditions of your planned long distance hike. This is Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite sleeping mattress. It is the gold standard in 3-season lightweight hiking. Worked perfectly for me during this hike. It is comfortable, its warmth to weight ratio is exceptional. In terms of R value, I'm a warm sleeper, and 3.2 R value provided by this pad was quite enough for me. Keep in mind that Kungsleden can be quite chilly during nights, even during summer, so I myself would not use a pad that has an R value lower than 3. Remember, your sleeping bag or quilt will not be enough to keep you warm if you don't use a mattress with the appropriate R value, because you will lose heat to the ground. This is my inflatable Airplow, X-Bed Airplow Ultralight. This is how it looks like when it is fully inflated. A good sleep is a must in a long distance hike, in my opinion, and I can't do that without a pillow. I like this a lot because it is very light and the design features work really well. I covered my t-shirt to protect it from the dirt and grime coming from my face and head. Here's my tent, Nemo Hornet 2P. I don't know if you can go lighter than this with a conventional double wall 3-season tent. I love this thing. I prefer the 2-person version of the Hornet versus the 1-person version because there's not much weight difference, and I wanted to have some more room. I've had no problems with the waterproofness of the Rainfly so far, even in continuous heavy rains, but I can't say anything about how the 15D floor would perform when it is used without the ground sheet. I myself always used the Nemo's ground sheet specifically made for this tent, which adds another 75T to my tent's 15D floor fabric, which means extra waterproofing and also protection to the thin floor fabric of my tent. In short, if you're considering buying this tent and want to learn how the thin floor fabric performs in wet conditions, I suggest that you do some research. And let me show you these are the poles. This is Nemo ground sheet made for a Nemo Hornet 2P. As my tent stake, I use MSR groundhogs. I think there are lighter stakes out there like titanium shepherd hooks, but I love to use these as they hold the ground very well and they are light enough. I used 4 minis for the corners and 2 regular size ones for the vestibules, and plus carried 2 more minis if I needed to guy out the tent, which I did during this hike. And let's get to the kitchen stuff. This stove is one of my favorite gear. It is a Soto Amicus. I had used a BRS 3000T during my first Kungsleden hike in 2017 and it worked okay there, but then it started to have problems. Reliability in a stove I think is very important, so I decided to buy a good solid stove. After much research, I eliminated my choices to 2 stoves, Soto Amicus and MSR Pocket Rocket 2, and finally decided on Soto Amicus. Compared to the 25 grams of BRS 3000T, this is much heavier, 78 grams, the piezo igniter included, but as I said, it's not always about weight reduction. I can tell you after using this quite a bit in very different conditions, every gram of it is worth carrying. First and foremost, it is very good for an upright canister stove in the wind due to its concave shaped burner you see here, which means the efficient use of gas and preventing waste. So I am very happy with this stove so far. This is the pot I used. It's a Snow Peak titanium pot. I did not use the lid. Instead, I used aluminum foil. My long handle spoon. Long handle is less messy to use when you're eating from big freeze-dried food pouches. Swiss Army Classic pocket knife, just 21 grams, and this has all I need. My stove has a piezo igniter, but I carried this mini big lighter as a backup. This is my Garmin Enriched Explorer Plus. It's heavy, expensive, but very useful. Provides me with a peace of mind. 2 functions that I care most about are first the SOS function, and the second one is satellite messaging, which helps me keep in contact with the wife and the outside world. As a phone, I carried my iPhone 7 Plus. It is very big, heavy. Luckily, it fit into my hiking pants pocket and didn't restrict my movements. I just like the big screen. I'm also using a life-proof case plus a screen protector. iPhone headphones, just make sure the bushes along the trail do not claim them. This is the headlamp I use, Black Diamond Revolt. This is the older model. The new Revolt has different features. The best features for me are rechargeable batteries paired with a micro USB, so I can charge this using a wall socket or my power bank. That being said, I'm not sure the rechargeable batteries that came with it have long lives. The second good thing is the dimmer, because it helps you to save battery. And third one is that it has a locking mechanism so it doesn't get switched on in my backpack mistakenly and drain my battery. And here are the bad things. First of all, 110 lumens is not enough in some cases. Second, one of the main reasons I bought this was the long battery life, but I'm not sure about that. Maybe the short battery life I'm seeing now is because the rechargeable batteries are dead. I don't know. Just make sure you read reviews from trustworthy sources before making your purchase decision. This is my Anker 10,000 milliamp power bank or external battery. It was perfectly enough for me during this hike, but I have to warn you that I took precautions for that to be the case. First of all, I kept the phone in flight mode when it was not in use. Second, I locked the headlamp so it is not mistakenly turned on in my backpack. And these are the cables and adapter. I carried one from each. This is the micro USB to charge my headlamp, external battery, and Garmin Enriched. And this is the cable to charge the iPhone. And third, this is the this is the plug. It would be much more comfortable to carry two from each, so I could charge two things at the same time. But this is another trade-off to cut the weight. And here is my dear backpack, Osprey Exo 58. Now let me say in advance that I would have easily done with a 40-liter backpack, but I had this and I just didn't and don't want to spend any more money on gear. To cut a bit more weight, I decided to leave the lid behind this time, and what a great decision that was. Beside the advantage of obvious weight reduction, it was much more practical to use the backpack without the lid. No fussing around to find things because everything is in the main compartment. And secondly, the weight distribution and the balance of the pack felt better without the lid. I also took out the removable straps to cut some more grams. Overall, I love my backpack. It's very comfortable even when it is close to its capacity in terms of weight. And I use this shoulder pouch from Z-Packs to carry my Garmin Enriched. To waterproof the bag, I used a 20-gallon trash contractor bag. So here, I lined the inside of the backpack with this. Please keep in mind that the regular trash bags are thinner and they will get tears and holes easily. This trash contractor type trash bag is much more durable. And to provide extra waterproofing, I used dry bags, one for my quilt and extra clothing. You see here, it's a 13-liter dry bag. And I have another one here. It's a 4-liter version of the same dry bag. I used it for my electronics. This level of waterproofing may seem to you like an overkill, but I just didn't want to risk anything getting wet on a chilly and wet trail like Kungsleden, and these dry bags are not that heavy. Granite Gear 16-liter food bag. The design with the zipper on top is very useful. You can access all the items in this without emptying out the stuff like you do in conventional food bags. Great gear. My first aid kit. The pouch is made by Adventure Medical Kits, but what I carried inside I brought together myself, do-it-yourself style. Most of the content is from my local pharmacy. Toothbrush. I cut the handle of my everyday toothbrush to cut some more weight. By the way, I did not include the personal hygiene items like my toothpaste, like my body glide to prevent chafing, etc. to this video because, they're consumables. You don't see them here, but I carried 3 0.7-liter plastic water bottles to carry water. I carried 2 of them in my backpack side bottle pockets and 1 inside the main compartment in my backpack in case I needed to carry extra water. Now you see my Lecky Micro Vario carbon tracking poles. They are foldable, so it is very convenient when traveling. They are very lightweight. I'm very happy with these tracking poles. And this is my pack towel. Absolute necessity in my opinion. Dries extremely fast. I used it to dry my pot, dry myself after showers, etc. Okay, we're done with the gear list, but don't go yet. In this last part, I will tell you what I would change in this gear setup to reduce my gear weight more if money was not an issue. Here we go. First of all, I would change my Exos 58 with a Z-Pax Arc Blast, which is 595 grams. And then I would change my Nemo Hornet 2P tent with a Z-Pax Duplex tent, which is 539 grams. With that tent, I would use a Polycro ground sheet. And I would replace my Lecky Micro Vario carbon tracking poles with Gossamer Gear T5 poles without the straps and baskets, which is for a pair 260 grams. And finally, I would replace my quilt with a Western Mountaineering sleeping bag, but I'm not sure which one. I would possibly go with the Summerlite, which is a 32 Fahrenheit bag and it weighs only 540 grams. Now 32 Fahrenheit is a bit of a stretch since the temperature rating is at the limits considering the conditions of Kungsleden, but I think I would get away with it since I'm a warm sleeper and I could use my extra clothing if I started to get cold. However, I think the Summerlite doesn't have a draft collar and a similar bag with one would be better. Such an alternative seems to be the Megalite, which is a bit heavier with 680 grams, which is almost identical with my quilt. Another more realistic alternative would be an Alpenlite, which is a 20 Fahrenheit bag, and that would cover all my 3-season needs, but it is considerably heavier with 880 grams. Now, the target was to cut as much weight as possible from my current gear weight without jeopardizing my safety, so let's assume I use the Summerlite. And here's a disclaimer. I have no idea how these perform in the real world. I didn't even read any reviews on these bags. I just know that Western Mountaineering is in another league in terms of sleeping bag quality, along with another brand called Feathered Friends. Okay, according to my calculation, I would cut my base weight another 1100 grams, which would bring my base weight to 5.2 kilos. When it comes to my total weight, the weight reduction is more than this because remember, I also changed my tracking poles. Now, my total weight would be 7 kilos and 50 grams. By the way, all these changes would cost me around $1,500 without shipping and customs. Alright, now this fantasy section is over. Sorry gear junkies, we can end this torturously long video. Well, thanks a lot for watching this. Enjoy your time out there and be safe. Bye.